Have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror and felt a profound disconnect between the person staring back at you and who you truly feel you are inside? That moment when your reflection seems like a stranger, wearing a mask crafted from years of trying to meet others' expectations, societal standards, and the relentless pursuit of an impossible ideal of femininity. It's as if you're trapped in a hall of mirrors, each one reflecting a different version of yourself that you've created, to please someone else, to fit in, to be accepted, to be loved. I understand this feeling deeply, this painful separation from your authentic self, this exhausting performance of being someone you're not. The weight of pretending crushes your spirit a little more each day, leaving you feeling hollow inside, wondering if anyone truly knows the real you, or if you even know yourself anymore. The masks we wear as women become so familiar that removing them feels terrifying, as if peeling away these layers might leave nothing behind. But today, I want to share with you something transformative, something that has the power to reconnect you with your true essence, to help you step out of that hall of distorted mirrors and into the light of self-acceptance. This journey isn't about learning new techniques to become someone better. It's about unlearning the patterns that have disconnected you from who you already are. It's about discovering the profound beauty that emerges when you dare to be authentically yourself in a world that has taught you to be anything but. When we explore the concept of self-acceptance through the lens of Carl Rogers's humanistic psychology, we encounter a revolutionary perspective that stands in stark contrast to much of what society teaches women about themselves. Rogers, one of the founders of the humanistic approach to psychology, believed that at our core, each of us possesses an innate wisdom, a natural tendency toward growth, healing, and fulfillment. He called this the actualizing tendency, an inherent drive within every person to develop their capacities in ways that maintain or enhance them. Yet for many women, this natural growth process becomes distorted by what Rogers termed conditions of worth, the subtle and not so subtle messages we receive throughout our lives about what makes us valuable, lovable, and worthy of acceptance. From earliest childhood, girls are often taught that their worth is tied to their appearance, their ability to please others, their willingness to put their own needs last, and their skill at conforming to constantly shifting and often contradictory standards of femininity. These conditions of worth become internalized, forming what Rogers called an introjected value system, beliefs about ourselves that we've absorbed from others but have never truly examined or chosen for ourselves. We begin to live according to an ideal self, an impossible standard of who we think we should be, rather than our real self, the person we actually are, with all our genuine feelings, desires, and potential. The gap between this ideal self and our real self creates what Rogers described as incongruence, a painful state of inner conflict and disconnection from our authentic experience. Many women live in a chronic state of incongruence, constantly monitoring themselves through the eyes of others, adjusting their behavior, appearance, and even their thoughts and feelings to match external expectations rather than internal truth. This incongruence manifests as anxiety, depression, a vague sense of emptiness, relationship difficulties, and a pervasive feeling of never being quite good enough no matter what you accomplish or how hard you try. It's like living with a harsh internal critic who has internalized every negative message society has ever directed at women, measuring you against standards that no real human being could possibly meet. The tragedy is that many women come to believe that this critical voice is the voice of truth or reality, rather than recognizing it as the accumulated weight of conditional messages they've received throughout their lives. I want to pause here for a moment and ask you to reflect on your own experience. When do you feel most disconnected from your true self? When do you find yourself putting on a mask or performing a version of yourself that doesn't feel authentic? I know that naming these experiences can be difficult, that the words sometimes get stuck in our throat, held back by shame or the fear that our deepest feelings somehow aren't valid. But there is enormous power in acknowledging these moments of disconnection, in bringing them from the shadow into the light. I'd like to invite you to share in the comments below, starting with the phrase, "I feel disconnected when..." It can be something simple and honest. No need for eloquence or profound insight. Your words might be exactly what another person needs to hear to feel less alone in their struggle. By sharing our experiences, we create a community of authentic connection, which is the very antidote to the isolation of incongruence. And now, continuing our exploration of Roger's approach to self-acceptance, let's look at the conditions that make it possible to reclaim our authentic selves. Rogers identified 3 core conditions that facilitate genuine self-acceptance and growth toward our full potential: unconditional positive regard, empathic understanding, and congruence or authenticity. Typically, these are discussed in the context of the therapeutic relationship as qualities that an effective therapist brings to their work with clients. However, they are equally powerful when we learn to cultivate them in our relationship with ourselves and when we seek out relationships with others who can offer these conditions to us. Unconditional positive regard means accepting and valuing yourself as a worthy human being, regardless of your behaviors, achievements, appearance, or any other external measure. It doesn't mean approving of everything you do, but rather maintaining a fundamental respect and care for yourself as a person, separate from any evaluation of specific actions or characteristics. For many women, this concept feels almost revolutionary, as they've been taught that their worth is always conditional, tied to their beauty, their youth, their maternal capacities, their sexual desirability, their ability to nurture others while neglecting themselves, or countless other external validations. Practicing unconditional positive regard toward yourself means recognizing that you have inherent value that exists prior to and independent of any of these qualities or accomplishments. You are not valuable because you are beautiful. You are valuable because you are you, a unique consciousness and life force that has never existed before and will never exist again in precisely the same way. Empathic understanding involves developing the ability to perceive your own internal experiences accurately and compassionately, without judgment or avoidance. Rather than dismissing your emotions as overreactions or chiding yourself for feeling things you shouldn't feel, empathic self-understanding means allowing yourself to fully experience and acknowledge whatever arises within you, approaching your inner life with curiosity rather than condemnation. For women who have been socialized to prioritize others' emotions while suppressing their own, developing empathic understanding of themselves can be particularly challenging and healing. It means giving yourself permission to recognize and honor your own emotional truth, even when it doesn't match what you've been told you should feel. Congruence, or authenticity, is about developing alignment between your inner experience and your outer expression, allowing yourself to be who you truly are, rather than who you think you should be. It means removing the masks, dropping the performances, and letting your words and actions flow from your genuine feelings and values, rather than from fear of judgment or rejection. This doesn't mean impulsively acting on every feeling without reflection, but rather developing a deeper awareness of your true self and finding ways to express that self honestly in your life and relationships. For many women, the journey toward congruence involves recognizing how they've learned to hide or disguise aspects of themselves that didn't fit with societal expectations of femininity. Whether that's their anger, their ambition, their sexuality, their intelligence, their need for solitude, or countless other dimensions of human experience. As we begin to integrate these 3 conditions into our relationship with ourselves, something remarkable happens. The self-criticism and self-rejection that have fueled our incongruence begin to soften and dissolve. We start to create what Rogers called a growth-promoting climate within ourselves, an internal environment characterized by safety, acceptance, and authentic connection with our own experience. Within this climate, our natural tendency toward actualization, toward becoming more fully ourselves, can finally operate freely. We begin to trust our own perceptions and feelings, rather than constantly looking to others for validation and direction. We become more capable of making choices that truly reflect our own values and desires, rather than automatically conforming to external expectations. We develop what Rogers called an internal locus of evaluation, the ability to assess our experiences and decisions based on our own sense of what feels right and true for us, rather than constantly seeking approval or avoiding disapproval from others. This shift doesn't happen overnight, and it's not a linear process. There will be steps forward and steps back, moments of profound connection with your authentic self, and times when the old patterns of self-criticism and performance resurface. Self-acceptance is not a destination you reach once and for all, but rather a practice you return to again and again, gradually building your capacity to remain connected with your true self, even in challenging circumstances. The journey toward self-acceptance is both deeply personal and inherently relational. While the work begins within yourself, it flourishes in connection with others who can offer you the same conditions of unconditional positive regard, empathic understanding, and authenticity that you're learning to give yourself. Rogers believed that human beings have a fundamental need for positive regard, for feeling valued, respected, and cared for by others. When this need is met only conditionally, when we are valued only for certain aspects of ourselves while other parts are rejected or ignored, we learn to hide or disown those unacceptable parts of ourselves, creating the state of incongruence we've been discussing. But when we experience unconditional positive regard from others, when we are accepted and valued for our whole selves, not just the parts that meet external standards, we can begin to reintegrate the aspects of ourselves we've denied or rejected. This is why finding a community of people who can see and accept your authentic self is so powerful in the journey towards self-acceptance. This might be a therapist, a close friend, a support group, or any relationship where you feel safe to be vulnerable and real. The experience of being truly seen and accepted by another person helps to counteract all the conditional messages you've internalized throughout your life. It provides external validation for the unconditional positive regard you're learning to give yourself, creating a positive feedback loop that accelerates your healing and growth. One of the most beautiful aspects of Rogers' approach is his recognition of the wisdom of the body and emotions in guiding us toward greater congruence and fulfillment. He observed that our feelings and bodily sensations offer valuable information about our needs, boundaries, and values if we learn to listen to them rather than dismissing or suppressing them. For women especially, reclaiming this embodied wisdom can be revolutionary, as female bodies and emotions have been particularly pathologized and controlled throughout history. Learning to listen to your body, to recognize when you're tired, hungry, stressed, aroused, angry, afraid, or joyful, and to honor those signals rather than overriding them to please others or meet external demands, is a crucial aspect of developing congruence. Similarly, developing emotional literacy, the ability to identify, understand, and express your feelings accurately, is essential for reconnecting with your authentic self. Many women have been taught to deny their anger, to smile through pain, to accommodate others at the expense of their own needs, and to doubt the validity of their emotional responses. Breaking these patterns requires practicing new ways of relating to your emotional experience, acknowledging your feelings without judgment, expressing them appropriately, and using them as guidance for your choices and actions, rather than as problems to be solved or suppressed. As we cultivate greater self-acceptance and congruence, we often discover that the qualities we've been most afraid to acknowledge or express are actually sources of strength and beauty, when fully integrated into our authentic selves. The anger we feared might be destructive becomes righteous indignation that fuels our commitment to justice. The vulnerability we tried to hide becomes the gateway to deeper connection with others. The ambition we downplayed becomes the driver of meaningful contribution to the world. The needs and desires we felt guilty about become the compass that guides us toward a more fulfilling life. This integration of previously rejected aspects of ourselves leads to what Rogers described as becoming more fully functioning, more fully alive, present, and engaged with our experience. The fully functioning person, according to Rogers, is characterized by several qualities: openness to experience, living existentially, fully in each moment rather than dwelling in the past or future, trust in one's own organism, in the wisdom of one's body, feelings and intuition, creativity, and a fundamental trust in human nature. They approach life with curiosity and flexibility rather than rigid preconceptions, allowing their understanding of themselves and the world to evolve based on new experiences rather than defending against information that challenges their existing beliefs. If this message resonates with something deep within you, if you feel a yearning for the kind of authentic self-acceptance we've been exploring, I want you to know that you're not alone on this journey. This channel is dedicated to creating a safe space for this kind of inner exploration, drawing on Carl Rogers' profound insights about human growth and applying them to the everyday challenges we face as women in today's world. We won't offer superficial advice or quick fixes here. Instead, we're committed to honoring the depth and complexity of your experience, to respecting your innate capacity for growth and healing, and to walking alongside you as you discover your own path toward greater authenticity and fulfillment. I invite you to subscribe to this channel as an act of commitment to your own well-being, to creating more space in your life for the kind of gentle self-reflection that leads to genuine transformation. Consider turning on notifications so that each new video serves as a reminder to pause and reconnect with your authentic self amidst the busyness and demands of daily life. I'll be here consistently, offering perspectives and practices grounded in Rogers' humanistic approach, creating a community where your true self is welcomed and valued. Let's embark on this journey together, rediscovering the beauty that emerges when we dare to be fully ourselves in a world that has taught us to be anything but. The beauty that emerges from self-acceptance is qualitatively different from the kind of beauty our culture typically celebrates. It's not about perfection or conforming to external standards. It's about the luminous authenticity that shines through when a woman is fully present, fully herself, no longer exhausting her energy on maintaining a facade or seeking validation from others. This beauty has a depth and radiance that cannot be achieved through any external enhancement. It emanates from within, from a place of integration, self-knowledge, and self-compassion. It's visible in the way a self-accepting woman moves through the world, with a kind of groundedness and presence that draws others to her, not because she's trying to please or impress, but because there's something profoundly compelling about someone who is at home in their own skin. This is the kind of beauty the world doesn't fully understand or know how to categorize because it doesn't fit neatly into conventional standards or marketplace values. It can't be bought or sold, manufactured or mass-produced. It arises naturally when we remove the obstacles to our authentic self-expression rather than adding more layers of performance or pretense. It's the beauty of a woman who has reclaimed her wholeness, who brings all of herself to her interactions and engagements rather than compartmentalizing or censoring aspects of her experience to make others comfortable. Rogers believed that every person, regardless of their history or circumstances, maintains this capacity for growth toward greater congruence and self-acceptance. No matter how deeply entrenched our patterns of self-criticism and performance have become, the actualizing tendency remains active within us, continually moving us toward healing when the right conditions are present. This is a profoundly hopeful perspective, suggesting that the journey toward self-acceptance is not about becoming someone you're not. It's about removing the barriers to who you already are at your core. It's not about adding more to your list of self-improvement projects. It's about subtracting the conditions and constraints that have prevented you from experiencing your inherent value and wisdom. This doesn't mean that the journey is easy or straightforward. The patterns of incongruence and self-rejection we've developed over a lifetime don't disappear overnight. They're deeply embedded in our neural pathways, our emotional responses, our bodily habits, and our relationships. Changing these patterns requires patience, persistence, and compassion for ourselves as we inevitably stumble and fall back into old ways of being. It requires creating new experiences of unconditional positive regard, both from ourselves and from others, to counterbalance the conditional messages we've internalized throughout our lives. One of the most helpful practices in this journey is what Rogers called accurate symbolization, developing the ability to recognize and name our experiences precisely without distortion or denial. This sounds simple, but it's remarkably challenging for many women who have learned to discount their perceptions and feelings, to tell themselves they're too sensitive or overreacting when their experience doesn't match what they've been told it should be. Accurate symbolization begins with slowing down enough to notice what's happening in your body and emotions, to register your responses to situations without immediately jumping to judgment or analysis. It involves developing a richer vocabulary for your internal states, moving beyond vague terms like fine or upset to more precise descriptions of your emotional landscape. It means learning to distinguish between primary emotions, your direct response to a situation, and secondary emotions like shame or guilt that arise in reaction to your primary feelings. As your capacity for accurate symbolization grows, you become more able to recognize when you're falling into patterns of incongruence, when you're acting or speaking in ways that don't align with your true feelings and values. This awareness is the essential first step toward making different choices, toward bringing more of your authentic self into your daily life and relationships. Another practice that supports the journey toward self-acceptance is cultivating what mindfulness traditions call the observing self, the part of you that can witness your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors without becoming completely identified with them. This inner observer allows you to recognize when you're caught in self-criticism or performance without adding another layer of judgment about the fact that you're judging yourself. It helps you to see that your thoughts and feelings are experiences you're having, not who you fundamentally are. This creates a spaciousness around difficult emotions and habitual patterns, making it easier to respond to them with compassion rather than being overwhelmed by them. The observing self also helps you to recognize the difference between genuine self-acceptance and what Rogers called introjected positive self-regard. Statements like, "I love myself," or "I'm perfect just as I am," that you've taken in from self-help culture but don't truly feel or believe. True self-acceptance isn't about forcing positive feelings toward yourself. It's about creating a relationship with yourself characterized by honesty, respect, and compassionate understanding, even perhaps especially when you're struggling or making mistakes. As women, our journey towards self-acceptance often involves recognizing and challenging the specific ways that sexism and gender socialization have shaped our relationship with ourselves. The conditions of worth imposed on women are both universal and highly individualized, varying across cultures, families, and historical periods, while sharing certain common themes: the emphasis on appearance and the aging female body as a problem to be solved, the expectation of selfless nurturing at the expense of our own needs, the double binds around sexuality, ambition, anger, and power, the subtle and not so subtle messages that our perceptions and feelings are less reliable or important than those of men, Bringing these conditions into conscious awareness helps us to see how many of our supposedly personal inadequacies and struggles are actually predictable responses to contradictory social demands. This awareness doesn't magically dissolve the impact of these messages, but it does help us to stop taking them as statements about our individual worth or capacity. It allows us to recognize that much of our self-criticism is the internalized voice of a culture that has never fully valued women's full humanity, rather than an accurate assessment of who we are. The journey towards self-acceptance also involves grieving for the parts of ourselves we've hidden or abandoned, for the energy we've expended trying to earn conditional love, for the opportunities we may have missed while caught in patterns of people-pleasing or perfectionism. This grief is a natural and necessary part of the healing process, acknowledging the real losses that have resulted from our incongruence without getting stuck in regret or self-blame. Rogers observed that when people allow themselves to fully experience and express their grief in a supportive environment, they naturally move toward integration and renewed engagement with life. The same is true of other difficult emotions like anger, fear, and disappointment. When we can acknowledge and accept these feelings as valid aspects of our experience, rather than problems to be solved, they flow through us and transform rather than becoming stuck or suppressed. This emotional fluidity is both a sign of increasing congruence and a catalyst for further growth. As we become more willing to experience the full range of our emotions without judgment or avoidance, we develop greater resilience and flexibility in responding to life's challenges. One of the most powerful aspects of Rogers' approach is his recognition that self-acceptance and acceptance of others are deeply interconnected. As we learn to meet ourselves with unconditional positive regard, empathic understanding, and authenticity, we naturally become more capable of offering these same conditions to others. Our need to judge, control, or change those around us diminishes as we become more secure in our own sense of worth and more trusting of others' capacity for growth and self-direction. This doesn't mean we stop having boundaries or preferences, but rather that we can express these from a place of clarity and respect rather than fear or demand. We become more able to see and accept others as they truly are, not as projections of our own needs or expectations. This shift in how we relate to others creates a positive cycle of authentic connection. As we offer others the conditions that support their growth toward congruence, they often become more capable of offering these same conditions back to us, further supporting our own journey toward self-acceptance. The impacts of increasing self-acceptance and congruence extend far beyond our individual well-being and relationships. Rogers believed that as people become more fully functioning, more open to their experience, more trusting of their inner wisdom, more capable of creative and flexible responses to life's challenges, they naturally make choices that contribute to the greater good. This is not because they're following external moral codes or trying to be virtuous, but because their natural empathy and interconnectedness with others can operate more freely when they're not consumed by their own incongruence and the defensive behaviors it generates. Self-accepting women often find themselves drawn to work that expresses their unique gifts and values, to relationships that support mutual growth and authenticity, and to actions that contribute to creating a more just and compassionate world. They're less likely to participate in systems of oppression or exploitation because they no longer need to secure their own worth by elevating themselves above others or accumulating external validation. They're more capable of taking principled stands against injustice because they're less dependent on others' approval for their sense of value and rightness. As we've explored the journey towards self-acceptance through the lens of Rogers' humanistic psychology, I hope you've recognized aspects of your own experience in this discussion. Perhaps you've gained new insights into the patterns of incongruence that have shaped your relationship with yourself, or felt a sense of relief in recognizing that your struggles with self-acceptance are not signs of personal failure, but predictable responses to the conditions in which you've developed. Perhaps you've felt a spark of hope in recognizing that the capacity for growth toward greater congruence and fulfillment remains alive within you, regardless of your history or circumstances. The path forward involves creating new experiences of unconditional positive regard, both from yourself and from others, developing greater empathic understanding of your own inner world, and practicing authenticity in your expression and actions. It involves learning to recognize and name your experiences accurately, to trust the wisdom of your body and emotions, to observe your patterns without judgment, and to grieve what has been lost through incongruence while opening to new possibilities for authentic living. This journey is not about achieving some perfect state of self-acceptance, but rather about developing a more compassionate and honest relationship with yourself over time, with an understanding that this relationship, like all relationships, will have its ups and downs, its moments of connection and disconnection. In a world that profits from women's self-doubt and insecurity, choosing the path of self-acceptance is a revolutionary act. It challenges the systems and institutions that depend on our willingness to purchase products, pursue treatments, and adopt practices designed to fix our supposed flaws and bring us closer to impossible standards of femininity. It disrupts the dynamics of relationships based on power imbalance and conditional acceptance. It creates space for a different kind of beauty to emerge, the beauty of authenticity, of presence, of a woman fully inhabiting her humanity without apology or performance. This is the beauty the world doesn't understand, because it can't be commodified or controlled, because it arises from a place of intrinsic worth rather than extrinsic validation. As you continue on your journey toward greater self-acceptance, remember that you are not alone. Countless women are walking this path alongside you, challenging the conditions that have limited their authentic self-expression and reclaiming their inherent value and wisdom. Together, we are creating new possibilities for what it means to be a woman in this world. Possibilities grounded in the recognition of our fundamental worth, our capacity for growth, and our right to live from our truest selves. This is the legacy we create, not only for ourselves, but for the generations of women who will come after us, who will benefit from every step we take toward greater congruence and self-acceptance. If this message has touched something within you, if you feel drawn to explore these ideas further and continue this journey toward authentic self-acceptance, I invite you to join our community by subscribing to this channel. Here, we create a space for the kind of deep reflection and genuine connection that supports growth and healing. We're not offering quick fixes or surface-level advice, but rather engaging with the profound insights of Carl Rogers' humanistic psychology as they apply to the real challenges we face as women in today's world. When you subscribe, you're making a gentle commitment to your own well-being, to creating more space in your life for the kind of self-understanding that leads to genuine transformation. Consider turning on notifications as a regular reminder to pause and reconnect with your authentic self amidst the demands and distractions of daily life. I'll be here consistently, offering perspectives and practices grounded in compassion and respect for your unique journey. Together, we can create a community where the beauty of authenticity is recognized and celebrated, where the masks can safely come off, and where the journey toward becoming more fully ourselves is honored as the sacred work that it is. Let's walk this path together, supporting each other as we discover the profound beauty that emerges when we dare to accept ourselves fully, in a world that has too often taught us that we are not enough just as we are.